Today, we are going to be talking about print statements. But what exactly are print statements? Well, let's say I tell the computer to print to the screen, "I love coding." When I use a print statement, the screen will then display the words, "I love coding." Now, the thing is that you can type as much code as you want. However, things will only be printed to the screen if you use a print statement. There are two different types of print statements in Java. The first is System.out.print, and the second is System.out.println. Let's focus on the first part. So this first part, System.out.print, is telling our system or computer to print out whatever is inside of the parentheses. The second part is where we are actually going to put the information that we want printed to the screen. So if you want to print some words, you'll put words in here, numbers, you'll put numbers. The portion that says insert information here, you do not put that inside when you are coding. I just put that there so you guys knew. The last part is called a semicolon. So whenever you write a line of code, you are always going to put a semicolon at the end, except for loops and if statements, but we'll get into that much later. So whenever you write a print statement, you'll put a semicolon at the end because this tells the computer that this is the end of that line of code. You may have noticed earlier that these two print statements are different from one another. One contains an ln after the word print, whereas the other does not. Well, what does this difference between them actually mean? What does this mean for when we're printing stuff out to the screen? Let's take a look at our REPL and try to figure out what this difference means. All right, so as you guys can see here, I created a new REPL and I named it 2.1 print statements. If you guys need help creating a REPL, refer to episode 1.2 inside of the introduction playlist. All right, so as I told you guys earlier, we are going to be coding in this class right here. As you can see, there's already a print statement inside of here. This is just the default. It pops up in every single REPL that you make. So really quick, I'm just going to highlight this and then delete it because this is not necessary. Deleting this will in no way affect how your REPL runs or mess anything up. So now when we're printing stuff to the screen, you always have to type inside of these two brackets right here. These brackets help the computer to stay organized and know which code to print to the screen. So any code inside of these two brackets will be printed. So now let's take a look at the very first print statement that we learned about. The System.out.print and then parenthesis, semicolon. Remember, inside of our parenthesis is what we are going to be printing to the screen. So for example, let's say I want to print the word potato. Whenever you want to print a word or phrase to the screen, you're going to have to put it inside of quotation marks. So I'm going to get my quotation marks and type the word potato. So now when I run my code or have the computer execute my code, let's take a look at what this displays to the screen. As you can see here, the computer printed out the word potato, exactly what we wanted. Now let's add another line of code. How about we do System.out.print lettuce? Let's see what we get when we print these two things to the screen. All right, as you can see here, the computer printed out potato, but then right after it printed out lettuce. Well, why is this? Let's take a look at our code. So right here, we told the computer to print out the word potato. So imagine the computer, or this area right here, kind of like a Google Doc. So the computer's cursor starts at the very front right here. And then what it does is that it prints out the word potato, and then after printing out the word potato, its cursor ends after the O. So then for our second line of code, System.out.print lettuce, the cursor is starting right after the O right here, and then it prints out the word lettuce, and the computer's cursor then ends right here. So if we were to add another print statement, print, let's say, radish, would you guys think this is going to end up? Well, let's take a look. Let's run our code really quick. As you can see here, radish ends up right after lettuce, because after we print lettuce to the screen, the cursor ends up right here, and then we have to print out radish, and our cursor ends right here. So even though right here, you can see how we clicked enter and then wrote our code and stuff like that, even though the code is stacked on top of each other right here, it doesn't mean that what's printed to the screen is going to be stacked on top of each other right here. So now let's take a look at our second print statement, the System.out.println. So the ln right here actually is just a shortened version for line. So this basically says System.out.println potato. Let's run our code and take a look at what this looks like. All right, guys, so as you can see here, we still get the same result as what we did when we did the System.out.print potato, so the one without the ln. We still get potato printed to the screen. Now let's see what happens when we use this same line of code, print ln, and we want to print lettuce. Now here, you guys can see how we get something a little bit different. You can see how instead of all of our words going one after the other, they're now printed on or below one another. Why is this? Well, it's because of the ln right here. For this first line of code, we're basically telling our computer to print out the line potato. So our cursor starts off right here, and then it prints out potato. But then, because there's an ln inside of here, this ln is basically telling our cursor to enter and go down a level. So after we print out the word potato, our cursor is right here, but then enter, and our cursor leaves off right here. So then our next line of code, System.out.println lettuce, our cursor from after printing out our potato starts off here. It prints out the word lettuce, and then enter, it goes down again. So now if I were to add in the word radish, where do you guys think this is going to print? Well, let's take a look. As you guys can see here, radish was printed underneath lettuce because after we ran the word lettuce, our cursor went right here, but then enter because of the ln, and then we start off here, we print out radish, and then because of the ln, cursor drops down to here. So now let's say in our line of code, we got rid of the ln right here in this middle part. What do you guys think this is going to look like? As you guys can see here, for the first line of code, our cursor starts here. We print out the word potato, but then because there's an ln in that line of code, we enter. Next, System.out.print lettuce. So we print out the word lettuce. Now the thing is, there is no ln here, so our cursor stays at the end of lettuce. Next, we move on to the next line of code. So System.out.println radish. So because our cursor left off right here, we're going to print radish, and then after that, we're going to enter to the next line. So this shows you guys the difference between System.out.print and System.out.println. All right, guys, now it's time for some review questions. So get out a sheet of paper and try to figure them out. After this, we'll go over all of the answers to them. So number 1, what is printed to the screen? Pause the video, get out your sheet of paper, and write down what you think we printed to the screen. All right, guys, so right now I'm back inside of my Rappel, and we're really quick going to go over the answer for number 1. So here's the code for number 1, System.out.print hello, System.out.print there. I'm going to run my code really quick, and then let's see what we get. You guys on your sheet of paper should have gotten hello and then right after hello there. The reason why is because this is a System.out.print statement. So when the computer first starts running our code, the cursor starts off right here. It prints out the word hello, and then the cursor stops at the end of hello. For the next word, or for the next line of code, System.out.print there, the cursor starts off right here, prints the word there, and then the cursor stops right here. The reason why we're not entering down is because there is no ln in either of these print statements. So the cursor will always stop or end at the end of each word. All right, guys, on to question number 2. What is printed to the screen? This is the last question we're going to do, so pause the video, get out your sheet of paper again, and try to figure this out. All right, so here's question number 2. Now let's run our code and see what we get. All right, so you guys should have gotten this as your outcome or output for this. Now let's go over this really quick. So System.out.println John. Cursor starts here, we print out John. Now because there's an ln in there, we enter to the next line. So now our cursor is starting here. Our next line of code says System.out.println is. So our cursor starts here, we print out the word is. Now because there's an ln, we enter to the next line. Our next line of code says System.out.print really. So cursor starts here, we print out the word really, but then because there is no ln inside of that code statement, our cursor stops right here and ends right after the word really. Then for our last line of code, it says System.out.println tall. So our cursor starts here, we print out the word tall, and then our cursor enters to the next line. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys liked this video and found it informational. If you really like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, just post them down below. And if you would like to continue how to learn to code in Java, click subscribe. All right, see you guys next time.